Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I want to welcome my guests because I know that they are coming with some expensive commodities. And I really like to take the time to bring that to their attention, because I know these things that they show up with are so valuable. First, time. Their time is so precious, and I want to thank you, Fabienne, for your time, because I know what that is, and that commodity that is so expensive, precious, and I am so thankful that you're here to share some of it with us. The second is your journey, that precious thing that houses your pain, your triumph, all that is you and have made you who you are today. And I want to thank you for that, coming to help us so that we can become better human spirits. Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much, Ken. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And thank you for having me and giving me the platform to actually give this little, nugget of information to listeners and kind of share what my journey's been, and being able to maybe hopefully help people to see this little nugget of information and maybe use them. So I'm really happy and very honored that you're giving me this opportunity to share all of this.
Oh, we're excited, and it is my hope that those that are listening to us that are attracted to your energy, your story, will then contact you and be a part of your, as they say, your posse, so that you can then guide them to that next state that they ought to be, and to develop and become the best human spirit that they can possibly become while they're here on this planet. That is my hope. And that is why I bring people like yourself on, so that the audience can then get to you, get into your space, buy your books, get into your coaching classes, all that stuff. But before you became who you are today, I want to go back a little further and tap into your memory so you can talk to us as to, I call it the lab, and most people call it family. So talk to us about your family upbringing. When your parents brought you home from the hospital, kissed you, put you in this wonderful crib, and they began to program you. Talk to me about your experience in that place called the family.
Yes. So, I mean, for me, I grew up in a very small town in France, actually. And I was the eldest out of two, but my brother came much later. Actually, it was more like I was a unique child, because I stayed as by myself without siblings for many, many years. My brother came 8 years later. But our family was a pretty tight unit, I have to say. And we had a lot going on, and we were really about supporting each other. My dad is a self-made man. He started working when he was 14 years old, built up his own business, and he always kind of worked on his own. My mom was working for health insurance in France, but both of them had kind of a normal life. And so I grew up, I have to say, in a normal life and in a normal family. But the more when you dig a little bit deeper, you find some of the elements that maybe brought to me some past, which one of the things that we didn't do so well was communication. And even though we had a great unit, we were a good family, and we have all what we needed, we were not so good at telling each other what we thought, telling each other what we felt, telling each other what was happening in our heads. And for me, for many, many years, that one thing that kept coming back and saying, you have to be more communicative. You have to communicate more. You have to talk more. And that was really an element of the miss there, of being able to connect deeply with my parents, even though I love them and it was all good on the outside. Deep down, there was this kind of unspoken rule of not speaking.
Yeah, I remember those rules. Speak only when you're spoken to and stuff like that was the culture I came from. So I have experienced some of that. It was my mom. We know that love is much more so an action than it is the word. And we saw the actions with that, but it's also nice to have the words. And
absolutely.
We were never, not until we were much older, did my mom and my dad said that they loved us. And so I get that. And having my kids, I wanted it to be different. And so I fought for it. It's something that you have to really fight for and want more than what you had before. And that tells you to create that relationship with your children or to have that communication. Talk to me as you are navigating through your life and all things look well so far, minus that aspect. You have your brother come into your life, 8 years younger, and you are now having this other sibling within your family life. How did you navigate with your new sibling and also as you were growing up? And how did you navigate in school, having the knowledge that there's not much communication between mom and dad and us? How did you manage yourself with all of that as a young girl?
Yeah. So, with my brother coming in, for me, it was already kind of a beginning of a, young lady, if we can say at that time. We always want to grow up faster. So it was great. And I really enjoyed having him around. And I kind of became the mini mom. So I took a lot of responsibility. And my parents let me take the responsibility or gave me extra responsibility to take care of the little brother, which was fun at the beginning, but tend to be getting old quite quickly. But, at the end, it's finding the positive within the negative. And sometimes, it was keeping me away from being with my friends and being silly. So I had to become a little bit more responsible because I had to take care of a 3-year-old during my summer vacation, for example. Wow. I was the babysitter. So it was what it was, and I didn't know anything else. So I went with the flow, and then with school, I always wanted to have more responsibility, and I do like to take responsibility. That's one thing that it is in my nature, and right from the beginning, that kind of was brought out is, at school, I was kind of a rebel, because the teacher were not giving me the responsibility that I needed to have. And so I was always being told what to do and what to say. And again, I felt like I was being blocked in the box, and I was being put in this little box where I couldn't really express what I had inside. Same thing with living in the small town, being in the small, restricted environment, making sure that people would not say things about you. So we tend to keep everything locked up in this little square, but inside, I was like boiling. I needed to get it all out. I needed to be out, say what I wanted to say, to really search for the feelings, the elements that were around, where I wanted to go. And all of this environment was very constrictive to me, too much, restricted. And all of that kind of came later on, where it kind of had this explosion. I needed to get out, and I needed to leave, and I needed to go far away, as far as I could be, so then I could actually become me, and I could actually feel who I was inside me.
So how old were you when, as this is boiling up in you as a young person, the responsibility of your brother and all this other things, and the restrictions, amounts, the container, the programming? And I love that phrasing, because some of us always fight it, and they label us when we're young, rebellious. And I think what that the programming is set up to keep you and I, what I say, within that invisible fence, which is called normal. And everyone is trying to be normal. It is that fence by which society contains us. So how, as this young girl is having all of this stuff within the turmoil within self, how did you devise your plan, and what plan was it that you devised to get out of there?
So it actually started with school. I decided to go to school and take a field, because I didn't want, I needed to go into something where I could express myself. So I needed to express myself in another way. So I decided to go into expressing myself with my hands by becoming a massage therapist and an esthetician. So I went to a school in far away in the big city of Lyon in France. And so I was away from the family, and I was away from the small little town. And then on top of that, I was learning to express my feeling with my hands by doing facials, by doing massages. And so that was the first kind of step towards the place where I felt like I could be me. And then later on, you know, I decided to go and work in the French Alps. So again, I brought myself to a different area to meet other people, to expand my horizons. So the big city, the different area of France, moving and kind of starting to take my suitcase and moving around until this suitcase and this move around brought me to United States and to Chicago in my early 20s. And that's really where the change became completely settled, because I had to learn another language. And by learning that new language, which was English, I learned to express my feeling. And one thing that's super cool is that I realized that learning another language allows us to all of a sudden become what we want to be, because we, again, 5-year-old. At 23, I was a 5-year-old learning to express myself. And it taught me so much about all these feelings and all these elements, all of the things that I wanted to say for years. Finally, we're able to come up with this new language, because in my little French language box, I had not been taught to actually use what was in there fully, because it was restricted feeling or language of expression.
So here you are, because that's a beautiful analogy that you gave. You went into a field that I talked, learning the art of manipulating energy. Massage therapy is energy work. How did that energy work, even though you were such a young person? Did you look at it as such, or did you see the spiritual part of the massage therapy piece, or did you just focus on the natural part of it, the physical aspect of it? How did you manage within that?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, because we are so, program, as you said, into this outer part, that, at the beginning, it was all about anatomy and physiology and learning about the component of the body and manipulating muscle and releasing tensions and really working that. But as I became more savvy and starting to really connect with people on a different level, then the energy came upon, and studying all of the different layer, the auras, how we feel, how we enter each other's space, how we connect with each other without connecting with just being next to each other in the room. So all of this came upon the way, and I had to take this a little bit further. So of course I learned how to do Reiki. I became more connected with the whole energy aspect. But as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, is we are so conditioned to go from outside in versus inside out. Then of course my skills were all learned from the outer envelope. And then slowly, as I was opening, because you have to be open, you have to keep your mind open to what comes to you in order to connect with that. And so, yes, as I became better at it, as I also met people, and I remember years ago, I think it was in my first job, I was doing massages, and I had this client that came to me, and he was from India. And so he would come on a regular basis once a week for a massage. And as we got to know each other, and he started telling me all of these different possibility and things that are happening and what's being used in India and the cultural aspect. So for me, it was like this nugget of information. I was like, oh, this nugget of information, I have to do something about that.
Yeah.
I have to go study something about that. And so that was, you know, kind of looking at all of these pieces and these messengers that come to you to help you to move forward to the next level. And so, yes, energy came upon much a little bit later in order to connect with my people.
Awesome. So you're here in the States, you're learning the language, you're expressing yourself. This person that was bottled up is now able to free herself in her mind. How did you express that freedom with the individual that is you? How did you express it? I know one part of it was the massage piece, but then we are multifaceted beings. So how did you begin to express yourself in other aspects of your life with this newfound freedom of expression and freedom of learning about you?
So the whole language for me was really difficult at the beginning, and it was very frustrating because I'm so impatient. I want to know and do everything right now. But I had to learn to take it day by day, step by step. And so I ended up, you know, becoming quite fluent in really where I felt I could use this language to make a difference for me, but also for others, was in education. And that's where I got into training and education, where I started to really help others in their skill. The advantage of being a French woman with skincare, massage therapy, and beauty industry experience, when you get to the US in the early 90s, everyone wanted to know what I knew. So I had kind of a little bit of a break right there. Yeah. So it really helped me to put out there my experience and what I knew about the field, the wellness field, the beauty field, and to start putting this into more of a, how can I teach people? How can I help people to be better at what they do? Because of course, I have chosen this field of wellness, massage therapy way back in the 80s because I wanted to help people. I wanted to be connected to people. But then now my higher self was saying, okay, it's good. You're helping your client, your consumer. They come to you. You're doing all this, but there's all of these other people that could also, you know, be joining in the fun and being able to communicate with us. So that's where that whole concept of training and education came on board. Personal development as well as developing others was really part of it. And what I loved about this, it's a win-win situation because I get and I give. And in every situation, there's this exchange of knowledge, of feeling, of energy that we get together and we help each other out all the time. And we give each other these little, again, nugget of information and we help each other finding them too. So being also what I believe is that we don't need to go through major problem to actually make changes and self-develop or develop others. We only need to be aware and to look around and to feed with each other the feeling of the connection.
Yeah, I think the major crisis happens as a last resort. I
Yeah.
believe that
Great.
we all along, as you had mentioned, the red flags are there, and I would say the breadcrumbs are there all along. And
Mm-hmm.
we have a tendency, because most of us are plugged in. We're plugged into working. We're plugged into the system. And so we're on the treadmill. We get up in the morning. We brush
Yeah.
our teeth. We grab our face. We take a shower. We run to jump in the car, the AC on, run to the job, do what we have to do. La, 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 la. We laugh. We run back home and we get some eat. By the time we're tired, we talk a little, go to sleep. And so we're plugged in. We are not in a space by which those little flags that we are paying attention to it. And so, because, I tell people this, and I know it's a harsh thing, because we are needed, and, people say the universe, I say God, I believe is in intelligent design, needs you and just has to grab your attention. And this is the only thing that will grab it. Something that will cause you to go, what in the world just happened? How did I get here? What happened to me? I can't believe I'm here, and all of this stuff. And so we began to then delve into the question to begin to peel away the belief systems that brought us to that place. Even though we were being, the red flags were there trying to grab our attention, but we don't pay attention. Most of us don't until that day of our visitation, I call it. Now, did you have your day of visitation, or are you one of those that were able to recognize your red flags and go, yeah, I see this. Let me make these adjustments and move? Which camp were you a part of, Fabienne? Which camp were you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think life has given me a lot of red flag, and I've taken some of them and I've seen some of them and became really aware and did something right away. But some I didn't. And one thing I wasn't so good about was in personal relationship. I was always really good at seeing the red flag in my personal and in my professional life around. I always kind of knew what to do. But in my personal life, a relationship with men was always a little bit more difficult. And I had at one point where I got to the point where I'm like, okay, this has to stop. I can't live my life that way. I need to make a change. Why is it that I'm attracting always the wrong people? What is it that am I doing? What do I need to change? And yes, I had a kind of a revelation. It wasn't like a major thing. I didn't get sick. I didn't become an alcoholic or whatever, but it was enough for me, enough uncomfortable for me that it pushed me to say, I really need to make a change. And that's where I became more where I worked with someone who helped me about the whole concept of belief box and behavior kind of therapy, and finding out how do we cancel what we have in our belief box and recreate new information in that belief box so we can use them toward something. And that was a major aha moment for me at that point, to understand that actually I have control over this. I can actually make the changes. And so this was a big moment in my life of really becoming more aware of what I needed to do and how I needed to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we live in our life, and because we are energy, pulling energy. And the energy in most cases that we'll pull, I believe, is to, if we have some kind of issue within one particular part of our life, we have a tendency of pulling people, bring the awareness of it, that this needs to be fixed. And when we recognize it like you did, you had that revelation that this needed to be fixed. You recognize it within yourself. Instead, most people will start yelling at the other person. But those that are called and looking for to personal development and personal growth will begin to look at self first and say, why am I doing this? How is this happening? What am I doing? As we begin to investigate those belief system and the energy that is causing that, we then recognize it. And I believe we make an agreement with ourselves. And I tell people life is is a series of agreement that we make with ourselves. Because once we recognize something and we make that agreement deep within us, and I call it, Fabienne, I call it the statement of faith. And the reason why I say this to people is that you got to believe it more than anyone else, because people are going to come and tell you opposite of that. But because you own it, it's yours, and it will then guide your life and the decisions that you make from that space on to the next time when you recognize that I need new agreements to propel you to the different degree. So you're moving, you saw, and you're open to the fact that the part of you that wants to become a servant. And the servant aspect is to help people to develop themselves and to get a picture, a glimpse of who they truly are. Because I think a coach, all the coaches does is simply come back to you and make you aware of the greatness within you. I grew up in the church, Fabienne, and I always use Jesus Christ as an example. He would tell these people, he says, they would come to him and say to him about miracles and miracles, and he looked at them and says, your faith made you whole, not mine, yours. And so he always kept pointing it back to them, the disciples. He's in the boat sleeping, and the disciples wake him up and says, don't you care if we die? He said, I'm tired. He said, he looked at them and said, you could stop the wind just like me. And so he kept pointing to the greatness, to make them aware of the greatness within themselves. And when he left, these men became aware of the greatness within themselves, and they changed the world. And that is our hope, that as we take some of these people that are coming into our space, that they would become disciples and do greater things than you and I can ever do, because it is such a powerful reality to them. And so, as you're moving in this space and you begin to make the adjustment as to you making your agreement, how did you navigate some of those, as you said, in your belief box, some of those erroneous belief of yourself? How did you learn to manage them as you discovered that they were there within the belief box that you had mentioned earlier?
So I used, of course, meditation is a big one. Visualization is another one. Affirmations are another one. I'm a big affirmation person. I actually do affirmation every single week. I found something so it's really, for me, it had to be very visual. So I learned to visually empty my little box. So I would take some of these beliefs that I had, and
what were some of those? Tell me, what were some of those?
For example, I felt like I was always needy. I needed to have, someone that was always with me. So I would take this neediness and I would just, take it visually, take it out of the box, either kick it away with my feet, or visually looking at it being swept into the air and the universe. And then I would create a new affirmation that I would visually put in my box. And so I would, of course, talk about that affirmation on a regular basis. I would say it. I would look at myself in the mirror and actually say that, look at myself in the eyes to say it. So it would sink into elements. And same thing with fears. I would take some fears away. So one of the fear, I've always had fear of not having enough financially. So same concept, kind of looking at that and then moving it out and doing this whole journey. Of course, it doesn't happen in one day, because these beliefs, they kind of hang on to the box and they don't want to come out of the box.
They hide themselves well in many cases. It takes you years to find them because they're hidden under something. Yeah. So, yeah.
So those were my kind of my little, and they are still, I do that all the time. It's just has become part of my life now. And I cannot live without this meditation, visualization, affirmation, because I believe that beliefs keep going into boxes, and sometimes we have to keep removing them and put new one. It's an exercise we have to do all life long. It is not a one-time exercise and then it's over. I always say this kind of exercise, it's like, trying to work out. You put the outer envelope. You have to do it all the time. Or in skincare, you have to do it all the time. If you don't do skincare, that's not going to work. So it's a consistency of doing it all the time to really create that new belief and being able to use this new information.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think those tools that you mentioned are some of the most powerful tools that is available within this field of personal development. The first is we mentioned it early on in the conversation. The situation usually happens in our life to make us live in a state of awareness, brings us out of that stupor that we are in, just drifting back and forth. When we are awakened, that is such an important thing. Then we start to apply the tools. Meditation for me that's my thing, because that was one of the major tools that guided me. And visualization is another thing. It's a part of the meditation process in my mind, because that's how I meditate. Another part is the affirmation piece. That's all a part of it. The visualization, all of those things, because what you're doing with all that information now is taking these tools to rewire your brain, to rewire your thought pattern, to rewire your speech, to rewire everything that you have been programmed to. And as we mentioned, a lot of those beliefs, they're hidden. They are in corners that you and I don't even know existed until someone comes into our life. And the next thing you know, we're snapping at things and we had no idea that was there. But this situation brought it out. And then you're standing there and you have to make a decision whether you're like, oh, wow, this is a new discovery. And then you have to make the decision again, making another agreement to proceed in dealing with this particular thing that was uncovered based on the fact. And that is why it's great to have people around you, friends, good friends.
Exactly.
Good relationships and bad relationships will make you aware of those hidden things, that belief system that we have to bring to the forefront and then deal with it. When someone before I got the revelation, I used to cuss them out, when they would bring something to me and said, you do this, and I would like cuss them out. Then I grew up. I realized why they were there, why they saw that scotoma, my blind side, that I was not it was such a part of me that I could have never noticed it unless someone brought it to my attention.
Yeah.
So when I realized the purpose of friends and people in my life, when they brought it up, I would say to people, I will take that information and put it in the forefront of my thought. And I would actually think on what they say instead of hiding it and putting it back in that box, as you said. But I'm so glad that you talked about some of those fearful things, not being able to provide for self, and all those things are legitimate.
Yeah.
But that's not how we were created to live. And I think once we have discovered our gift, and then we are able to live from that gift and through that gift. So talk to us as you have discovered yours. When you walked into that space, and because I know that room, when you get there, you sit there and you go, wow, I am connected to all. And you feel that energy level connection. You feel it from every aspect of your being. When you got there, talk to me about when you got there, and talk about the joy, because you get not happiness. There's joy because it is deeper than that.
Oh.
Talk to me about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like you feel rewarded. You feel like whatever, when you are in that space of, and that's one of the area I love to be, is that I feel complete. I feel like I can send every single part of me. I feel like inside there's this butterfly of joy. Like you said, it's joy. It's not happiness. It's joy.
Yeah.
And it's, you feel like all of a sudden your whole body expand, and you're part of this. You're part of kind of this whole world together. You're part that you belong to something that you cannot see, but you feel it with your energy, and you feel so at peace. It's that peace moment of, I've accomplished and I do what I love, and I am what I want to be, and I love me. I love who I am, and I feel connected with everything else. And it's so peaceful. It feels like your equilibrium of your body, physical body, and your non-physical body are finally connected together. And these moments are, unfortunately, they don't stay like this forever. I wish I could be like this 24 hours a day. But it does.
We would sell it. I would sell it.
but you can recognize them, and then once you felt it, it's really easier to say, okay, I want to get back to my place. I want to get back to what my original, what am I supposed to do? And so it's finding the moments, and it's finding the right, opportunity to actually do that and become this complete, person, total, not just physical, but energy and physic together, coming together. Yeah, it's a beautiful moment, and I wish everyone can feel that. And I think it's possible for everyone to get this. Absolutely. It takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of recognition and awareness. Mostly it takes a lot of awareness. And as we mentioned earlier, is being able to see the red flags, and then the areas that it feels good. So it's really using our complete feeling process from inside out, but also using our mindset. And I'm big on mindset. And I think we talk a lot about mindset these days, but it's not new. This is something we have been talking about it a long time ago. Yeah. But mindset is one of the pillars of being able to feel that way and moving towards that way.
Yeah, the mindset, in my humble opinion, is the changing of your perspective. When you acquire the right perspective, even in the dark times, I'm not talking about the dark times have to go away. No, I am talking about a shift in the perspective that when the darkness comes, that you will see the beauty within it. You will see the opportunity. And when you approach any darkness like that, the light rushes in, and that darkness does not become darkness anymore.
Exactly.
It is a beautiful space. You are still feeling that joy, that freedom that you talked about just now. To me, that's freedom. When you get to that level, you are connected and disconnected at the same time. You're disconnected from fear and all of the different things that pull one down, and you're connected. All that is powerful and light and energy that is there. And so this dichotomy exists within yourself. And when you're in that awareness, there is this thing that is just happy. Joy is what the word, happiness doesn't even explain it. And that joy that is deep there sustains you. It lifts you up. It propels you. And I believe if it stayed like that, I believe we would lose the preciousness of it. It would become something that, because of our human nature, it becomes too familiar.
Yeah.
But because it leaves, we then dig deeper in our personal development to get back to that space.
Mm-hmm.
And as we dig deeper, we uncover more stuff, and we get to see a greatness that is, we're like, wow, I didn't know this about it. And so, it is a beautiful exchange. I think we get it as encouragement to remind us, yes, you're in the right space regardless. Keep coming.
Yeah.
Keep coming.
Yeah.
Keep coming. So talk to us as some of the things that you are, when we started this, I had you tell the people of all the things that you created. I want you to talk to me that how this person, this young girl, moving from that space is now a keynote speaker, a coach, a motivator. How did this little girl move from that space? And as she begins to get to where you're talking about, how did she then navigate into the space of the coach, the motivator, the keynote speaker? What were some of the those stories, the situations that caused you to move from where you were and drew you into the space of a keynote speaker, a coach, and a motivator? What were some of those, and how was that conversation with yourself?
Well, I think it's all of the above. It's hard for me to just point out only one. I think it's a puzzle, and all these pieces came together. And as I moved along my journey, first in France, and then my journey into when I was in the United States, and now back into Europe and traveling around the world, meeting other culture. I think all of these, this journey slowly but surely started to show that in the feeling, in recognizing the feeling inside, that slowly I recognized that my joy was coming when I was providing a solution or helping someone to feel better and to do something about their life. And that's where that full joy insight became. So it was kind of the reward of saying, you need to do more of this. You need to kind of look into doing this more often. And then as I traveled around the world, because I lectured quite a bit all over. I've been in Asia, Europe, Australia, United States. So going all of these also made me realize the different culture, and that the more I would get in the depth of the culture of people, understanding who they were, again, that fulfillment inside, that rewarding effect, that joy was keep going stronger. So it made me realize this is really the direction I need to go, and I need to continue, and I need to do more of this. And when you are successful, when you're good at it and you're meant to be doing something, automatically opportunities will come your way. I really believe that the universe brings you what you need in order to follow your journey. And I think that was, I can't just say that there was some moment like when I decided to go into education and training. That was a big moment, because that's where I started learning to lecture, to stand in front of a group, to talk to people, to motivate, to pass on knowledge. That was a big one. But it's all of the above. I can't say there's only one little thing. It's the whole journey that brought me to where I am now. And I know my journey is not finished. I have more to do, and there will be more that needs to come. And I haven't quite figured out what it is the next, but I know that something will show me, the universe will show me what it is.
One of the things that I do, and why I have people tell what they have created, I always put a preface to that, until now. Because once one is awakened and is in and living from and through their journey, that will change. And another 6 months from now, you will have done something. Another couple of weeks from now, something is adding, because you as an individual is still growing, is still getting deeper, is still adding upon. And so until you die and move and sheds this body that is housing and keeping us on this plane, until you've gained the knowledge that is necessary from this particular dimension. And when you no longer when you've reached your area and it's time for you to surrender your frame and you move into the next, I know and I believe that you're taking all of that knowledge that you have gained within this particular experience to go into the next experience. And so I want to talk to you about the coaching aspect. Is how can they reach you? Because here is a woman, guys, you're listening to us, and she is talking about all the tools that is necessary. And the thing that gets her excited is teaching. The stuff that turns her on and turns her on is to get you to see who you are. I want you guys to get in touch with her because this is showtime. I tell people the time has come where the babies are no longer supposed to be babies. It is time to grow up. You need to grow up, and you need people like these in your life so that they can help you to grow up, because the time that we have you can feel the change in what's going on, the energy, if you're awake. So talk to them. First of all, I want you to tell me about one of those experience when I call it the light bulb moment. When you have a client that you're working with, they came to you and they were in their dark space, Fabienne. They were there, and I tell them the purpose of a coach is there to ask you the questions that you're too busy to recognize that you needed to ask, because they have been through it and they know what to ask because they know the result that will come from. Do you remember, bring to your recollection one of those cases when the light bulb came on and you began to see, and you're in this space that I believe is one of the most precious place to be, when that person begins to see the greatness that is them, and you are experiencing it as they are getting this revelation. Talk to me about it.
Actually, there's a sentence I use a lot, and that I remember the first time I used it was to ask, what do you want to be known for? What do you want your legacy to be, and what do you want to leave behind? And I did that at one of a keynote speaking years back. And then all of a sudden, this lady in the audience burst in tears, and she just couldn't stop crying. And I think in just asking that question, even though there was many people around her, I think she realized that actually she wasn't doing what she's supposed to do. And so it was really for me, it took me a little bit back, but at the end, I thought it was a really great recognition for someone to feel like, oh my goodness, what do I want to be known for? Or what I'm doing is not what I want people to remember me about. I want to be doing something else. And it was more on the professional element versus on the personal, because it was at a professional conference. But I think that is often a very easy question to ask ourselves and write down, what do you want your peers in your industry to remember you about? What do you want? Do you want them to remember you or not?
Yeah.
As you are now, maybe not, So this has always been one of the things I always go back to, especially when I work with people in terms of their profession, and they're lost in their profession. They're lost in what they want to do next, or even in their personal elements in their life. Is this what you want your kids to remember you about being like this, So let's figure out what you want and let's put it down. And I use what I call the transformation cycle. And the transformation cycle is actually a 3-step process that is done on a very kind of long 6-month to a year basis. And it's all about, regrouping, reliving, and remotion. That's what I call it. Because you have to do some of the homework first before you go into motion. So these are the elements that I use. But the one thing I always ask is, what do you want to be known for? What is your legacy? What do you want to leave behind?
It's a powerful question. I think it will stop anyone in their tracks to, and again, we are in this loop. The men, we are programmed from birth, the provider. The woman is programmed, the person in the house, the provider. She works, go home, provide, cook, whatever. There's no room in that thing, that formula for self-development. And we are looking at that model for millions of years, and it's not working because we are creating some of the most painful, hurtful people we have ever seen in society that I can, on my time on this earth, as I see the behavior of others to each other. It's painful to even, to experience it. And when you are awakened and your spirit is sensitive to that type of thing, it can wear you out. And that's why I do my meditation. It keeps me grounded. I want to thank you, Fabienne, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. This has been wonderful. Everyone that has been listening to us, I want you guys to get in touch with her, get in her space so that she can teach you about her process by which you can come out and become this beautiful creature that you are, so that your family can benefit from it after you have benefit from it.
Yeah.
And those that are around you, your friends and the world. We're waiting for you guys because I'm sure that she wants to hear that one of the people that come to her is taking the world by storm and changing people's lives. And so I want to thank you personally for coming and sharing your precious time and your journey with us here at Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure to have this conversation and add to the conversations. It's been my pleasure to be with you. And it's all there. Your intrinsic potential is there. We just need to fluff it out and bring it out. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.